Good afternoon, everybody. Now we're going to present the last panel of the day. Let's welcome Marzia, Executive VP of TestLabs. Also, Gabriel Szlaifsztein, he's the GM of Continent Technologies. Also, Miguel Beascoa from Spain. He is General Manager of Beastek, and the moderator, Daniel Magariños. He is the Sales Manager for South America for EMMT Slots. Let's welcome them. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be moderating this panel with three colleagues from the business world. My first question would be, in your opinion, and regarding the increasing and the evolution of cyber attacks, generally speaking, we can start with Marzia. Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Daniel. Well, as we all know, especially in the last year, the cyber attack has been increasing exponentially, and not only for big companies and big corporations, but also small companies, small or medium companies have been victim of cybersecurity attacks. And obviously the gaming sector has also been a victim of this. We know operators that have been a victim of this type of attack. Generally, we all know that technology is an enabler for everything regarding transaction, especially in the gaming industry. For obvious reasons, due to the pandemic, all the online activity has grown exponentially. Therefore, all the activities, all the unwanted activities regarding cybersecurity went into the same direction. That's why during this last year, we've detected that we've managed this with care, all this increasing of cyber attack. And also there has been an increase of the risk that these activities entail. As we see, everything related with sensitive information, all this became a target for these people that carry out these illegal activities. Therefore, with the pandemic, there has been an increase of this type of activity. Since we cannot go to the casinos, all these caused this surge in these cases. That's why we have tightened the controls. We need to pay more attention to cybersecurity. Even though we already have taken into account all these type of problems. Okay, now Miguel Ángel. Yes, good afternoon, everybody. I completely agree with the two previous panelists. And up to date, we have 404 billion users for the internet, and 50% is in Asia. In Europe, there's more users than in Latin America and Africa. And this year, gender equality has reached to the internet. We are the same amount of men and women surfing the web. What we see is that the virus hasn't stopped, but cybercrime hasn't stopped either. So the Europol office has detected an increase in cyber attacks, internet fraud, and counterfeit products. The criminals had adapted to the remote work. Organized crime has adjusted their modus operandi with all the remote working, all the co-working. This has enabled organized crime and terrorism because there has been a huge demand of e-commerce, and we see that the increase of e-commerce in Spain, it's 20-something%, and gaming, it's the second growth factor because traditional casinos have adapted to the online world. So COVID is not only a sanitary risk, but it's also a risk for cybersecurity. As Marzia said, it has affected the big, small and medium companies. And there's a lot of security gaps. Internet crime is increasing. All the different police departments have detected an increase in illegal online activity. There's more crime where there's a concentration of users. And entertainment, it's a target, and gaming, it's other target. So we need to tighten the systems, and we're facing a new normal in the online world because the networks have been overwhelmed. If we have 20% more use, in space would be in 50%. So fiber optics, and for example, in Spain we have 500 megas of internet, and now we have 1 giga, and this was a claim for all the users. So to sum up, the increase of cybercrime has been exponential. Sometimes it's interesting to know what could happen with a cyber attack. Maybe you can share 1 or 2 cases very briefly. Recent cases, for example, from last year that have been made public in order to see or to appreciate the dimension of a cyber attack and all the consequences that may have. So if you could share an example with us, would be great. Marzia? Yes, we have several cases and very famous ones. One of those is the SolarWinds case in 2020. I think they are still quantifying the damage that this attack caused, but also we know that 5,000 users from Marriott Hotel were exposed, and one of the most famous cases was the NGA. I think 10 million, the information of 10 million users was exposed. But I personally know cases from operators from our customers that have suffered attacks. between 2019 and 2020, and these meant to stop the operation. We're not talking about just about an economic damage, but also there's the direct cost and indirect cost. There's damage to the reputation that, and the player may think there has been a cyber attack with this platform, so I don't know if I can trust it. Should I change a platform? Should I keep playing? So the damage, it's not only a direct damage, but they can endure through time. So it's very important to respond to these incidents, because the faster we detect an intrusion, then the consequences are going to be less. I'm sure we're going to keep talking about this during the conversation, but it's very concerning that this type of company have been victims of a cyber attack. I remember that before getting into the cybersecurity world, 4 years ago, when BMM started, in this industry, I didn't think that small companies or even individual people may be victim of these attacks. I've known about very small companies that have been victims of this attack, and a loss of 30 or 40,000 euros, it's a very huge damage for a small company. And this could mean the bankruptcy of many businesses. So there's a lot of examples. I know that my colleagues could provide more. Gabriel or Miguel Angel? Yeah, I just wanted to tell you a bit about cyber attacks in Argentina. We would need to divide them in two types. Like in Latin America, we have online gaming, we have Colombia that is completely regulated, we have Argentina that is partially regulated, and the rest of the countries, well, Brazil, it's trying to follow the same regulated path. So all the attacks for online gaming industry are closely related to foreign attacks in platforms that are not located in the region. However, to talk about known cases, in Argentina, the government was hacked. They obtained information, and this was a very known case in the media because it was a government entity. They demanded the government to pay in bitcoins so they can have the information back without publish it. Obviously, the government did not negotiate it with them. The information was published, and it didn't have any serious consequence. But as Marzia said, beyond the economic loss, there's a reputational loss behind a cyber attack, because especially the online activity, one of the things it's based on is trust. So when there is a cyber attack of this magnitude, it's very hard to forget for somebody that connects to these platforms to play online. So it could be an impact, an economic loss, and it's not only with the cyber attack, but this is also exponential long term due to the reputational loss that may incur in these attacks. The region is a constant victim of these attacks. There's a lot of phishing, hacking, and DOS attacks. And as my colleague mentioned, all the small and medium companies, cybersecurity, it's not very strong, and they are an easy target for these criminals. As it was mentioned, now with the remote working, they attack to these small companies that are more vulnerable and are easier to hack. So one of the main problems that these platforms face is how to manage security within these platforms and say, okay, should we host it in Latin America or somewhere else? All this is related to this topic. Am I going to be the victim of an attack or not? And at some point, you're going to be attacked to obtain information, or with DOS attacks. So this is not a minor thing, and the companies that are interested in this activity, and even in Latin America, where regulation it's managed by the government. This should be, or we shouldn't forget about this, and we should be aware that while the companies became more relevant, there's a higher potential for cyber attacks of a great magnitude. Now I will leave the floor with my colleague. Okay, thank you, Gabriel. Now Miguel Angel. Well, I work between Spain and Peru. So there has been, for example, accounting firms that have been victims of attack. Also restaurant groups. Also energy companies and co-working companies. There's not a clear profile. We are all subject to an attack, and even though there are behavioral patterns of the criminals, there are cities that, for example, in Ukraine, there was a blackout, and they blame Russia of cutting the energy supply. So many nuclear plants have been shut down. This has also happened in Venezuela. Anyone can cut a gas supply or electricity supply. We in Madrid we've had hacked
y poner un mensaje, ¿no? De emergencia o de salida. Imaginaos si pudiesen acceder a la torre de control, ¿no? Y poder cambiar los sistemas.
You can also hack advertising billboards or signalage signs. This happened in Los Angeles.
Las computadoras de la central nuclear estadounidense en Estados Unidos fueron hackeadas.
So anyone can hack an information system and put any message that they want. Imagine if they can access the control tower of an airport. That's feasible. In June 2017, the computers of a nuclear central of the US were hacked. We're talking about very serious event. Also in healthcare, the water treatment plants were hacked. They were able to change the chemical concentration for a water treatment, so you would be able to poison a population. So all the devices to control liquids or gases are subject to hacking. Then the typical attacks in Spain Averies has been attacked. One day there was one attack, but it affected 5 or 7 companies. There are a virus that attacked the Jerez municipality. It shut it down. There's a law that makes the municipalities to provide the same services online. If I can go to do any process in person, I should be able to do it online. But everything was shut down, all the municipalities' website, and this happened in March with a ministry. On March 11, 12, and 13, the minister had to go on TV to inform this. This was a scandal. An entire population was helpless and weren't able to get paid. So all the unions said that the institution didn't invest in cybersecurity systems and that the systems were obsolete. So imagine the reputational damage for the Ministry of Work of Labor in Spain. So this could happen at any point, at any time, and without knowing it's happening. As we see, this could happen in any sector because the world is controlled by computers and chips, and these are subject to a signal that opens them or closes them. So, and now even more with 5G. Okay, very interesting, the cases that you are sharing with us. And this could happen to anyone. It was very interesting. In your opinion, what are the 3 immediate actions that a company should take to improve their protection against cyber crime? Okay, I think awareness and monitoring. It's a very important task. If you don't make your staff aware of all the risks and dangers, all the problems that you may have for not having an updated antivirus or for not unplugging the computer, or if you leave the information where you shouldn't, we need to have a basic cyber security culture. If not, we're going to have a big problem. So you need to make your staff aware of this. Carlomagno said, this is not for cybersecurity, but also for the pandemic. If one fails, or the chain is as strong as the weakest link, if somebody did not clean itself, they can get the virus to all his family. So if one employee fails, then it can affect the whole company. If you go about the streets without a mask, you can spread the virus even more. So that's the most important thing to me. Then, like the union said, and the organization didn't invest. So we need an annual budget for cybersecurity, because the systems are going to start using remote process automations to improve efficiencies. There are companies that want to have a robot for each employee. We're going to have more digitalization, so you're going to need more cybersecurity. So you need a budget and someone in charge. You need to put someone in charge. You need somebody that knows what to do when there's a crisis. And then knowledge can be acquired, but it's hard to be a specialist in cybersecurity. You can have a firewall or an antivirus, but all the techniques, having an expert on all these techniques is very hard. So you need to hire specialized companies, and these companies need to provide a comprehensive service. It's not that they're going to sell you an antivirus and that's it. They need to provide a security plan. So you don't need to invest in a security professional. You can outsource this to other company. So it's very hard for you to have an employee that is completely updated with the latest technologies. It's not about just installing an antivirus and that's it. It's an active management. And this requires a different approach. It's not the same cybersecurity for a gaming company or the cybersecurity for an oil company or a bank. So I think to have a specialized cybersecurity company that you can trust, it's important, because it makes you more secure. So you have your legal counsel, and you should have your cybersecurity counsel. And this can give you a competitive advantage. For example, in Tesla, employees of the company have filtered information, and Chinese company were able to access all this information. Or you can lose clients because the database was published. With this question, it made me think about some meetings that I had with gaming companies. And what it was interesting is the lack of awareness. Nobody from these companies, and these are not only small companies, even medium and large companies. I remember meetings in Italy where they were completely unaware of the threats from these cyber attacks and unaware of the consequences that a cyber attack may bring. I think one of the first action that a company should take is to define the risk, the security risk, the risk for them and for their suppliers. They need to assess the business and the needs and requirements. This would be the first step. Secondly, what we are missing in many companies, and maybe with the COVID-19 pandemic, this has accelerated. We need a security strategy. We need to define all the technologies to be implemented, all the procedures, how to respond to the incidents. This could be done internally or with the help of a specialized company. But we still need to define the strategy. And since we are talking all the time about strategy in the business world, we need to define a strategy for cybersecurity. Many times I've spoke with the chief technology officer that they thought that they knew everything. But we know that a complete protection is not realistic. But we could define a strategy and we could try to be prepared to these cyber attacks. We need to prepare, we need to defend ourselves. And this is not only about cybersecurity, we need to talk about cyber defense as well. And thirdly, we need to establish a leadership culture regarding cybersecurity. As Miguel Angel said, we could implement any type of technology, but in the end, the individual's responsibility, it's very important. So as companies, we need to make our staff aware. It's not enough to install a firewall. That's just a step. But we need to create a culture. And we create a culture through leadership. So this would be the 3 steps.
Gracias, Marzia, muy interesante.
We need to define the risk. We need to define a security strategy with external help, because as Miguel Angel said, it's very hard to find and to retain qualified personnel for this. And then we need to create a cyber security culture through leadership. Thank you, Marzia. Very interesting. Okay, thank you, Marzia and Miguel Angel. Everything you have explained has been very detailed, and I would like to highlight what Marzia mentioned, because cybersecurity, it doesn't go from bottom to top. It goes from top to bottom, cascading. So this is an organizational culture. I think cybersecurity is part of a wider concept that is information security. So if the organization has the will and it understands that information security it's a business need, then this is going to cascade into cybersecurity. And I insist with the concept of culture, because as Miguel Angel said, culture means good practices. It means that the information of the company is safe, that any confidential information is not visible. So this is, and I insist with the concept of culture, this is something that is generating through time. So during this time, to acquire this knowledge that is not present in the organization, it's a requirement. So we can bring specialists to define regulations, procedures, good practices, the needed software, the testing process to make sure that what we think is safe, it is in reality. So, for example, we have ethical hacking and other concepts that plus all the hardware infrastructure, the networks, the robots that perform different controls. We can say that the three pillars is to create organizational culture, have a good support, and the third one is basically make an investment decision considering that security, the information security, it's similar to the security at home, because everybody locks their doors because we think that what's inside is valuable to us. And I think cybersecurity should be based in a simple concept. Because once an attack is carried out, we could invest so that the losses are not as serious. Because as we said, their reputation suffers. And for gaming companies, where there's a lot of competition, and this industry is constantly growing, especially in the pandemic. So the player has a lot of participation. So to provide a secure environment gives the assurance that each time that a guest comes to my house may enjoy everything that I have safely. So these three pillars are key. And I think we all want this. That is that this industry keeps growing safely, and
Muy interesante.
we
Una
should
pregunta combinada, voy a combinar dos
guarantee
preguntas.
that this could be enjoyed
Los ataques cibernéticos
by everyone that
generalmente son por temas
wants to
de
participate
dinero o por
without
temas de información.
thinking that you're gonna
Pero
get
quizás
your
uno
information
también debe
stolen.
saber a otra. O sea, una vez que uno haciendo un
So
ciberataque,
that would be
digo,
my
puede ingresar a una
perspective.
empresa para robar datos, también
I
puede
have
ser
a
el dulce de que
two-part
también se puedan
question.
robar otro tipo de cosas. Entonces,
The cyber attacks
si hay
generally
estadística o si hay
are about
datos
money or information.
fidedignes de que una vez que se ingresa a una empresa,
But
después
once
los
you
ataques
carry out a
continúan,
cyber
obviamente,
attack,
digo,
you
hasta
can
que se
enter a
descubran,
company
¿no?
to steal
Pero se
information,
dan ese tipo de
but
casos, digo,
since you're there,
hay
you can
conocimiento de las
stall
empresas que hacen
something
esos
else.
análisis de que existan ese tipo
So
de acciones.
do we have statistics that say that once an attack is carried out, you can continue to attack that company until it's discovered? Do we have information on that? What we detected is that generally cyber attacks can be measured by three factors. One, it relates with terrorism, to make any kind of statement or to damage a particular platform. So the gain is not about what they can obtain from the platform, but the desire is to attack that institution. Another alternative is an immediate gain by attacking platforms to obtain money. They can access financial information that are in a payment platform, for example. There's another one that is data. This could be related with the fact that, and this is the case that Marzia was commenting, it also happened with Facebook. In these cases, you obtain information to sell it afterwards. So all these type of attacks are increasing because there's an immediate gain for these activities. So the areas that have more attacks are the ones related with the information, with financial transactions. These are the main target of these attacks. And normally we determine, because of the traffic that there is for certain servers, we determine when a gaming platform increases their activity. So we not only detect which is the server, because that information is publicly accessed, but we detect the point in which the gaming platform, because of the time, so any type of attack could be hidden, because it's hidden in a natural volume increase of this operation. So this type of action require more care in these points where there's a high volume of traffic, where there's an increase of activities, when there are promotions. So during those times, these attackers may access these platforms or databases so they can obtain information and obtain any gain afterwards. Following these examples, we can say that the objective of the cyber criminal, well, what's their main objective? It depends if we talk about cyber terrorism or cyber crime or hacktivism. If it's cyber terrorism, well, it's like the terrorist who kills 20 people in a school. This is a psychiatric profile. It's like people who get a truck and they can run over 50 people. So you need to take that into account. There are certain targets that can be attacked by these troubled people. We've seen examples of this in nuclear plants or water treatment plants. Then the cyber criminal, which is in it for the money, he just wants easy money, and what he tries to do is to steal data to sell it or to put ransomware to ask for a ransom. That way, information is encrypted, and only the people who encrypt it can give your information back. This is very annoying because it's like they cut down your power. Just like when you open the tap, you want water to come down, well, the same things should be with your information. So, if you are afraid of losing all the digital process because you cannot recover them, then you don't have a good security policy. You need to control that risk. I would say that cybercrime is the more dangerous for companies. And then the hacktivism, when there's, for example, like in Egypt, when they want to overthrow the government, well, the hackers join together for a social cause. So terrorism, human trafficking are also funded with these type of actions. We see attacks in the Middle East. These cyber crimes work in those markets, and when there is a deep web, then anyone can make a bomb or do all sorts of illegal activities like child pornography and all these type of things. So to put a barrier to the internet is very hard, but the government should regulate and foresee this type of events in companies and in government entities. If I was the government, I would encourage the companies to invest in cybersecurity, and I can offer tax incentives. For example, if you invest in cybersecurity, you could pay less in taxes. Okay, very good. We need to start closing, so I would like to end with a final question, and each panelist can provide a final answer. The question is, what should we do afterwards, after a cyber attack? What should we do? Should we share this information? Should we report it? Many times information helps not only to us in the company or in the government, but this also helps other company to take the appropriate measures and take preventive actions to avoid any future attacks. So please, a comment about this from each one of you. Yeah, like we said, the digitalization is something that it's here to stay, and there's no turning back. We need to deal with it, and this is happening in all the sectors, not only in gaming sector, but in every industry. We are talking about digital operations and figures. So what actions should we take when we are victim of a cyber attack? Well, obviously, to recover from an attack, it's key to being able to keep operating the business. And then we need to understand what's happened, why it happened, and how can we prevent this event to happen again. And also we need to mitigate the effects. So as we said, this cannot be avoided. We may have a good strategy, and we should make sure of having good technology and having all the cybersecurity tools. But this cannot guarantee that this is not going to happen. Any company or any technology department can ensure full protection, but it's important to share the information. I think there is competition here, but I think it's very dynamic. So to share this type of information, I think it would be beneficial for everybody, because while we develop new technologies, the hackers also developed their techniques. So it's important to be sure of what we have, because I've talked many times with companies and they have the feeling that that's not going to happen to them. So I think it's important to take measures. For example, the hack simulation. This is going to provide an idea of our status. Are we good? Are we strong to face a potential attack? We need to test how strong our systems are. I think this is very important. And since we are talking about a very dynamic sector where technology evolves every day, so it's important to share the information like we're doing right now. We are sharing our opinions, our data, and let's hope that this is helpful for everybody in the audience so they can be aware that it's
Gabriel.
important to take into account
¿Qué se puede hacer
the cyber
a raíz de un
defense and cyber
ciberataque
security,
o cómo encararlo?
and especially
Yo creo
for the
que
future.
creo que lo
Thank you.
más importante es
Okay, Gabriel.
tomar conciencia.
Okay, what can we do after a cyber attack, or how to deal with the situation? Well, I think
La gran pregunta que es
the most
¿por qué
important
nos
thing
pasó? Y ahí
is
abajo, o sea, ¿por qué nos
be
pasó?
aware
2 puntos y empezar a hacer una revisión interna
and
de
ask
dónde están
ourselves,
los puntos de falla
why
por el cual
did this happen?
alguien desde algún lugar
Why did this happen?
que nos produjo un daño
And we
desde el
need
punto de
to
vista
do an
económico,
internal
desde el
review.
punto de vista de imagen,
Where are
desde el punto
the
de vista
failing
de
points?
extracción de información, como mencionaba
Because somebody from
Miguel,
somewhere
de Tesla,
inflicted a
y en base a
damage,
esa lista,
an economic
eso
damage,
se tendría
a
que
reputational
convertir
damage.
en el puntapié
They
inicial o el punto de
subtracted
partida
information.
para que eso que nos
For
pasó, que
example,
fue un
like the
ciberataque,
cases
sea
you
el
mentioned
primero
with
de un
Tesla,
último.
and
Entonces,
this should
yo
become
puedo hacer
in
esa
the starting
autocrítica
point,
y reconocer que evidentemente
so
en algún lugar hubo un
that
fallo,
cyber attack is the
trabajar
first
en
and
esas
last
mejoras,
that we suffer.
porque tal vez la organización
So,
tiene la cultura
if
de
I can
seguridad
recognize
correspondiente, la
that
organización
there was a
invierte
failure at some point,
infraestructura, la
then we
organización
can
tiene algún tipo de
work
asesoría
on
externa.
improving this,
Sin
because
embargo, empresas y todos
the
sabemos
organization
que el
has a
gran
good
tamaño, como
security
se han mencionado al
culture.
principio de esta
The
charla,
organization
han
invests
sufrido
in
este tipo
infrastructure,
de
and
ataques
they
no
have
deseados que son los
external
ciberataques. Por
support.
ende,
However,
creo
we know
que
that very big
obviamente después de haber
companies
recuperado uno del
have
shock que
suffered
significa un ciberataque,
this type
el
of
segundo paso
cyber attacks.
es hacer un análisis
So,
bien detallado de dónde se hizo
I
la
think that
filtración, qué pasó, etcétera,
after the
etcétera.
shock of the
Y
cyber
después,
attack,
como una colaboración hacia la
the
industria,
first
tal vez
thing
sería
would
interesante
be
hasta tener una base de conocimiento en la
to
cual,
do
más
a
allá de las
detailed
fichas
analysis
negras, más
of
allá de los
where
sitios, más allá
and
de
the
un montón de
filtration
cosas
occurred,
que ya sabemos
and
que
then
existen,
it would be
tener un lugar en
interesting
el cual se convierta eso en una base de aprendizaje
to have a
que
common
finalmente
database,
sea una
because
retroalimentación de mejores prácticas para mejorar la
we should
calidad
have
de
a place
defensa contra estos
where
ciberataques,
we can
no
all
solo para el
learn
que lo
from
sufrió,
past
sino
experiences
para aquellos que hayan tenido la fortuna de no
in order
tenerlo,
to
que recibieron
improve
otro tipo de ciberataques,
the
puedan
strength of the
tomar las
defense for these
precauciones de manera
attacks.
proactiva
And
para,
this could be used not
para
only
evitar
by the
este,
company that suffered the attack,
ese tipo
but
particular de ataques.
also the other
Y bueno,
companies
de mi parte,
that
todo decir esto es todo, agradecer
may
a mis
take
compañeros de
the
panel,
preventive measures
muy
to
interesante
avoid
su
this type
ponencia,
of
muy
attack in the
interesante
future.
haber participado, así que
And
nuevamente gracias.
now I would like to thank my colleagues from the panel.
Pues bueno, mi experiencia, siempre que ha habido un ataque
I think this
serio a
was
una
very
organización,
interesting,
ha
and
sido
thank you again.
ver cómo
Thank you,
templaba el
Gabriel.
director general de la
Now, Miguel
organización.
Ángel.
Ya puede ser la policía de un
Well,
país,
my
la
experience,
cual, pues el responsable ve que sus
anytime
sistemas
that
han
a serious
comprometido y
attack
entonces
has
tienes unos graves
carried
problemas de
out,
seguridad.
well,
Y es
I've
como cuando
always
vas al médico
seen
y te dice,
the
tienes cáncer, y dice, pero me voy a morir.
CEO
Y dices, pues seguramente,
shaking.
pero ¿cuánto me queda de vida? Pues esto es igual. Ahí te das cuenta de
As
que
if somebody
asumes un
sees
riesgo
that your system have been compromised. It's like when you go to a doctor and you say you have cancer. Am I gonna die? Well, maybe, but how long do I have? Well, this is similar.
Con lo cual, lo primero es cuando vas a un experto en ciberseguridad, pues que te tranquilice.
There you realize that you have a crisis, and then the doctor comes in and says everything has a solution. So the first thing is to go to an expert so they can calm you down. The expert should talk to the IT staff. They need to assess what was the modus operandi of the attack. They need to assess the situation, and they need to decide how to proceed. It's like a lawyer. If you're going to go to trial or you're going to settle. So you need to make a lot of decisions very quickly, and you need to decide, okay, this is a ransomware, and you cannot access your information. Well, maybe it should be better to pay, because if not, if you don't produce, it could be better. Because if Repsol does not exploit an oil well for a day, is $1 million in losses. So you're not gonna lose 1 million a day. So okay, let's see, what are they asking? $200,000. Okay, let's pay, because if I call the police or if I hire an expert, there's no assurance. So you need to make decisions very quickly, and you need to decide what to do. For example, cases like Avery's or Telefónica, where you cannot be quiet, because your employees are talking about this. So you need to make this aware or this could reach the press or the social media, and this is very damaging for the company. So this is a different crisis management. It has to do more with PR. We need to calm the final users down, and we need to say that their information has not been compromised. It's just the employees. We should change passwords, and then the most important thing is to know if it's an internal or external attack. And if it's internal, well, we need to get all the different company departments involved in order to know who has carried out the attack. We need to see who filtered or who leaked the information. And in CP, when this happened, the general director had to go on TV and calm the population down, and they were not going to be affected. The employees had an extra work, but they solved the problem. Imagine if a company has to work on paper, if everything is digital. But it's hard to make a call decision in a cyber attack. And if this is a public entity, you need to make this available to the police. If it's a large company, well, the IT department, they need to decide how to operate. I would not spread this, because this means acknowledging that you have a big security problem, and this could make you a target again. So what to do after a cyber attack? you need a lot of common sense,
Entonces, cuando tenía
and
el jefe, dices, "Joder, si lo tenía que haber hecho, pero no lo hice, ¿por qué?". Porque
you
era como
need to
muy malo, ¿no?
realize that
Entonces, ese
you
lavado de
did not
conciencia
manage
es,
that well
a partir
because
de
you
ahora,
thought this was never
yo soy
gonna
una
happen to
persona
you,
aquí
and it
competente en mi
happened.
cargo con un presupuesto para que esto no vuelva a pasar. Y esa es la mayoría de
So
los casos
you need to
se arregla con
be
una
more
mayor
aware,
inversión.
and
Agradeceros
you need
también.
to have a budget for
Cerrando los
cybersecurity.
comentarios, muy interesantes los
In many
comentarios
cases,
realmente.
this is fixed with
Agradezco el
higher
tiempo y la
investment.
dedicación
Okay, thank
esta
you
reunión.
very much.
Gracias como
All
me
your
tocó
interventions have
moderar
been
esta
very
reunión.
interesting.
Me la han hecho,
Thank you
me la
for
han
your
hecho
time.
fácil, no he tenido mayores complicaciones. Y muchísimas gracias a Elizabeth y todo su equipo.
I've been
Y
the
bueno, esperemos
moderator
en encontrarnos
of
en algún
this
otro
meeting.
panel con estos temas que son
Well,
tan
it
interesantes
has
y
been very
importantes.
pleasant for me.
Con esto
Thank you,
damos
Elizabeth
fin
and
a
her
este
team.
panel. Les agradezco de vuelta a
And let's
Marzia,
hope we can
Gabriel,
reconvene
Miguel
in
Ángel por sus
another panel
aportes. Reitero
with
que han
these
sido más que
interesting
interesantes y yo creo
topics.
que
With this, we conclude the
nutridos, ¿no?
panel. Thank you
Para todos y
again,
todas.
Marzia, Gabriel,
Por acá
and
terminamos
Miguel
entonces.
Ángel.
Gracias y buenos días a todos.
Like I said, it was very
Muchas gracias.
interesting
Saludos.
for the audience. Thank you. Good day.